Hey guys, this is David. In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to fetch JSON data in the Swift programming language. So let's first take a look at what kind of data we're going to be fetching. So the JSON link that we're going to be using is the same one from my React Native tutorial. This link will be posted down in the description. So what we're going to be doing is fetching all of these movies and displaying it inside of a table view. We can also fetch the title and display this inside, maybe in the navigation bar or in like a UI label. Now let's create our project. New project. And we're going to call this Movies API. Make sure you have storyboard and Swift selected as your language. Next, save this to your desktop. Let's run our application to make sure everything is working first. Let's create a couple of folders here. So we're going to have model, view, controller. View controller is going to go under controller. Main.storyboard is going to go under view. And then we're going to create a couple of files inside a model to model the JSON data. Open up main.storyboard. And what we want to do here is take this view controller, delete it, and then we're going to put it in a table view controller and make sure is initial view controller is selected. Then also go into one of these cells, so table view cell. We need to make a custom identifier here. So we're going to call this movie cell. Make sure this class is going to be view controller. Okay, it's not letting us do this because we need to go inside of view controller and change this to UI table view controller. Now go back to storyboard, and here we can change this to view controller. There we go. Let's go back to view controller and let's change the table view background color. It's going to be red. Let's see if this is working. Okay, great. We have these empty cells right here. Let's make some comments here. Mark. It's going to be life cycle. And we're going to have mark helpers. We're going to have a function here called configure table view. And we can move this down there and call it from here. Just change this to light gray. Now at the bottom of this file, we need to create an extension of view controller. Here we're going to have our UI table view, data source, and UI table view delegate methods. So first method that we need is number of rows in section. Let's just return 5 for now. And then we're going to have cell for row at. We're going to say let cell equals table view dot dq reusable cell with identifier. And let's go up here, make a new mark. This is going to be called properties. We're going to have a property here called reuse identifier. This is going to be called movie cell, just like how we named it inside of our main.storyboard. Right here, movie cell. So we can pass in this identifier. So reuse identifier, and index path is what's getting passed into this function. Okay, we have the cell, and we can return it. So now we have 5 cells being displayed. Great, and let's get rid of all these other cells by saying table view dot footer dot table view footer view is just an empty UI view. That's going to get rid of all the ones at the bottom. Alright, now that we have our table view set up, let's go into model, create a new file called movie manager. Here we're going to import UIKit. We're going to create a struct called movie manager. Into here we're going to have a function called fetch movies. Inside of fetch movies, we need to create a URL. This URL is going to be the one that I showed earlier in the video. So URL string, let's copy this, paste it here. Then we need to create a data task. This is what's going to be fetching the data. URL session dot shared dot data task with URL and completion handler. So the URL that we're going to pass in is this website, so URL, and we have a completion block where we can press enter, and we're going to get some kind of data. We're not going to worry about the response, so we'll put underscore. Oops. And then we have an error. So let's see if we have any errors first. So if let error equals error, then we're going to print error fetching movies. Okay, this URL, we're going to need to say guard let URL, otherwise return. Now it's going to work. And we can display the error message. Before we continue, let's do this one step at a time. So let's print back what kind of data we get if we don't get an error. Now, after all this, so here's our function. After we call this data task, we need to call data task dot resume, which is going to start the fetch. Alright, inside of view controller and view did load, we're going to say let movie manager equals movie manager. Then we're going to say movie manager dot fetch movies. And we should get some kind of output inside the console. So as you can see, we're getting back some type of bytes. So these bytes need to be decoded using a JSON decoder. Now we can do this by creating a custom model based on how this data is looking. So let me show you how we're going to do this. So first, let's do guard let JSON data is equal to this data, otherwise we return. So what we need to do now is create a decoder, JSON decoder, and we're going to have a do catch block. Inside of the do, we're going to say let decoded data is equal to try decoder dot decode. So here we're going to pass in some kind of struct, and from the data is going to be this JSON data that we made sure that it wasn't nil. So pass in this JSON data. And if this is successful, if we successfully decode these bytes, we can print this decoded data. Inside of the catch block, we're just going to print error decoding data. Now we need to create some kind of struct that conforms to the decodable protocol. To do this, we're going to create a new file inside of model, and this is going to be called movie model. Now we need to create a struct called movie model. Okay, I'm going to first show you this the wrong way and then we'll fix it. So our movie model, what do we want to have inside of there? Let's take a look at what's on the website. So the website is going to give back some kind of title, description, and an array of movies like this. What we're most interested in is getting this array of movies. But let's first start with the basics so you can understand how all of this is working. We need to take this title and say let title equals is of type string. And same thing for description, just exactly how you see it here. This is also going to be a string. So let's go back to our movie manager. In here, we need to pass in some kind of type. So we're going to pass in our movie model dot self because it's expecting some kind of type. Now if we see the error message, we need to conform to the decodable protocol. So copy decodable and we can conform to it like so. Now it should be working. So as you can see, after we decoded our data inside of this do catch block, we printed out the decoded data like so. And in the console, we see we have title right here and description, just like how we see right on the website. Now the next thing that we need to do is create another struct. This one is going to be called movies. Now let's create another struct called movies, and this also is going to have to conform to decodable. So inside of movies, what do we have? We have ID, so let ID is going to be a string. We have a title, let title is going to be a string, and release year. I believe these are all strings. Oops. So now if we want to be able to access these movies, we need to say let movies, just like how we see it here. Let movies is going to be of type movies, the one that we created. This is like a custom type. And this is going to be an array of movies, so add those brackets. Now let's run our project and see what's getting printed into the console. So as you can see, movies right here, we have 2, 3, 4, and 5. Next step is, instead of printing this data, we need to return it back to our view controller so that we can display it inside of the UI table view. To do this, we're going to use a completion block. So completion at escaping void. In here, we're going to pass back our movie model type. So instead of just printing this data, we're going to say completion decoded data, because this data is of type movie model. Alright, inside of view controller, let's recall this movie manager dot fetch movies, and we have a completion block that we can enter. This is going to be called movies. So here we can print movies dot title, print movies dot description, and print movies dot movies. Here's our title, there's our description, and here's our array of movies. Once we get this back, we can start displaying it inside of our table view. So we are done with this model stuff. We can close this out. It's all good. First thing we're going to do is display this title. So go to main.storyboard. Here we're going to select this view controller, go to editor, embed it in navigation controller. So we got that navigation controller. So we have our navigation controller. Let's take this title that we get from movies and display it here. So to do this, we're going to say navigation item dot title is equal to movies dot title. Oh, and we need to say self because we're inside of a closure. Alright, that's not going to work because we're trying to do this. We need to do this on the main thread. So let's do something like this. And then put that in there and get rid of self. So this is just going to make sure that we're doing it on the main thread. Cool. So we have our title. Display our movies. Description we don't need to worry about because all it says is your app was fetched from this endpoint. So we can delete that. Now under properties, we're going to call something like so. It's going to be called movies. And it's going to be of type movies, not movies model, but movies. And we're going to say did set. Once this gets set, we're going to say movies was set. What's happening? Oh, and this is going to be optional. Alright, so instead of just printing out these movies, let's say self.movies, like the one for this view controller, the one that's optional, we're going to set it to the movies that we get back from our movie model. So this is of type movie model, and then we're going another layer to get to the movies. And actually these movies, it's actually going to be an array. So add those brackets. Alright, let's see that. So movies was set. That's good. So now that our view controller has these movies, here, to make this a little bit less confusing, let me call this something else. Let me say my movies. My movies. Alright, so now that we set the movies to this view controller, let's go to our number of rows and section, and here we're going to return my movies dot count. Alright, and if there's nothing else to display, like if there's no count, we're just going to say 0. And also, instead of saying movies was set, we're going to say table view dot reload data. Cell dot text label dot text is going to be equal to a movie. So we're going to say let's movie equals my movies at index path. Let's see, index path dot row. Is that working? We're going to say the cell's text labels are going to be movie dot title. And let's see if that's working now. Awesome. Ooh, what's going on here? Yeah, so we have to do the same thing that we did for navigation bar. Let's wrap this up in instead of a dispatch. Cool. So we'll say guard lets movie equals this. Otherwise, we're going to return an empty UI table view cell. So we're going to say movie dot title dash dash, and then we're going to have the release year. Movie dot release year. Here, just one's good. That's going to be it for this tutorial. If you have any questions, feel free to leave in the comments. If you think this video was useful in any way, leave a like and be sure to subscribe. I'll be posting more videos in the future. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.